Hey everybody, happy Sunday, right on time. There's the plane. The plane, the plane. That means, oops, that means Leslie Plaza here, Zazoo Plazz, the official start of the Zazoo Plazz report for Sunday, August 28th, 2022. Wow, already. You know, it's kind of a weird day. We just had a new moon last night. New moon in Virgo. Wrote out my new moon intentions and all that stuff. But it's kind of that kind of time of year, you know? It's like, this is the traditional start of back to school, but it's still hot and sticky. And I don't know what the heck is some kind of weird green goop in the water. It rains, so we have a little bit more water, but it's still, we got our work cut out for us here. I don't even know what to do about that. What to say about that. Kind of reminds me of that matcha tea. I think, I went to the mall once a few years ago, and I think it was Virgo season. I was feeling all like I want to be healthy and stuff. And they had like samples of tea, and I tried some of this green matcha tea, and it tasted like grass clippings. You ever try that stuff? That falls under the headline of life is too short to drink this. No. I mean, I'd have to use like half a thing of honey to make it palatable. Okay, I'll take my coffee. And now it is a good time though. I get my yogi tea, and it comes in different flavors. Or my herbal tea at night, my sleepy time tea. That stuff is great. Last night I had some peach flavor, and I put some ice in it. It's like iced herbal peach tea. That's one of my favorites. And it's not, doesn't have a lot of calories in it because it's just plain tea. And you just put some ice. Anyway, that's my commercial I remember watching as a kid. I'd watch this show with Bob Barker every night at 7 o'clock. It was called Truth or Consequences. And it used to be, this show is being brought to you by United Van Lines or something. And it was this moving truck, van lines, something van. And I always used to think he was saying Brock to you, not brought, but O-U-G-H-T, but Brock, like Aaron Brockovich. For some reason, my ear heard Brock. And there was this big moving truck. I haven't thought about that in years, and it just popped into my head right now. I love Bob Barker. So before he did The Price is Right, he did this show, Truth or Consequences. And it just popped into my head that this is kind of like a truth or consequences time. This month, this next few months, maybe I got that from the tree. Thank you, Miss Tree. It's a mystery. Get it? Mystery. But anyway, okay. So I was just thinking, truth or consequences. So in so many ways, it's perfect. I'll put a link down there. Maybe I can find some old videos for you. Those of you who don't remember the show. All I remember is as a kid, after dinner, I'd go watch that show. And we only had one little love seat in our tiny, tiny den. It was like a library. And of course there was a clock, because there was a clock in every darn room. And then it was the den. So it was usually a blue love seat, which is made for two people. But the three of us had to, squeeze on it. So usually if I could get on there before my dad, I could have the whole thing to myself. Because after a certain point, three of us couldn't fit in, so I had to sit on the floor. And for years, I still don't have a couch to sit on. I just sit on the floor. Even when I had my own place, I used to just sit on the floor because I didn't know that you could sit on the couch. So, anyway, welcome to Zazoo Plazz land. Those of you who are new, this is how we roll here. I'll come around. It'll come around. So, yeah. So, I remember, lying on the love seat with my feet up, watching Bob Barker, and then he would talk about, I don't even know if he talked about spaying and neutering your pets back then, but the name of the show was Truth or Consequences, and I don't even remember the premise of it, but I think that if you're caught lying or whatever, it was like instant karma, it was like, if you had to tell the truth or there would be consequences. And I don't even remember the rest of the show except for that part, but I really liked the show. So, I don't know, bug in my eye. So I'll have to refresh my memory. I was pretty young when it was on. But yeah, so if you think about it, this is a time now where if you're not telling the truth, or if you haven't told the truth, there will be consequences. Simple, and we don't have to worry about it as long as you're honest to yourself and you're honest to your loved ones, the world. I think justice wins in the end. That's my little commercial break there. Anyway, actually, I was going to talk about humility today. By the way, share Zazoo Plazz with everybody you know. I want to reach like a million followers. Anyway, about humility. Okay. So this is kind of perfect. So it was the reading about, basically it's paying it forward, if you're having a party, you're supposed to invite those who can't invite you back, invite people from, people who, I don't know, people that you just meet out in society, that your charity does not, it doesn't mean that you can't have your friends and family over. That's what I used to think, like on Thanksgiving. I used to say to my parents, well, of course, in Zazoo Plazz, I have a story, several stories, where I used to go back and invite the neighbors, like our neighbor, Mrs. Scott. I'd just invite people home for lunch, especially if they had dogs, and then I invite their dogs, and my mother would be like, what? Because I would, invite them over for lunch, and then she'd have to scramble and find a grilled cheese or, soup or something to serve people, because, but nobody does, I don't think anybody does that anymore. Back in the day, it was nice to have company for lunch or whatever. And we don't even have lunch anymore. We have, we've got four, me, my husband, and the four guys living in the house. Nobody even eats at the same time. I can't even imagine the last time we all sat down at the same time to eat a meal. But in those days, when I was growing up, we did. And, we had proper lunches with a sandwich, but we wouldn't have the special stuff. So if you had somebody over, my mother would want like a week to get prepared. And of course, because then she could invite, her friends and her ladies over, and they'd have, everything would be perfect with the tablecloth laid out and the nice napkins and the special cookies on a plate. And it just, of course, when my mother was a master entertainer, she was the Martha Stewart. She was like Martha Stewart, before there was before Martha Stewart had her empire. My mother was of the same generation, She'd have people over to the beach house, and she would do everything so perfectly, She would attend to every detail. And then she'd say, well, I had so-and-so down to the beach, and they didn't, I slaved all day over the, made breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and we took them out. Blah, 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 blah. That was in such a 1985. And I swear she had a ledger in her head, of who didn't invite her back and who did. Check. I'm just like, I I remember people, but I remember them in a, in a general way, like a feeling kind of, not even a feeling, but just a general universal kind of way, where I'm like, let's have, I'd go in, I'd walk this lady's dog, and I'd see her sitting there, in her house that was, dark and cold and didn't look like she was having anything, and I'd be like, come on over. We got plenty of food, which we did most of the time. And, then I'd feel bad on the way over. I'd be like, God, I hope Mom doesn't kill me. Because, my mother was very concerned with, what are they going to think? What are they, she got the social register. And to me, I didn't care. I just saw an opportunity, to get to know somebody, to do something for somebody, because it made me feel good, even as a kid. And that makes me feel good to send somebody off with some snacks and, take care of people. Just to take care of people made me feel good, So today, anyway, so there's that preamble to humility. So I think what it means is that, not that you don't have people over, but that you look for an opportunity to be of service. Virgo season, and Virgo's all about your health, going back to school, your job, what you do in the world, your service to others in the world, and earth, into the earth. So we sent my youngest son, ZP, off to the University of Connecticut today, and I didn't go. I worked with him yesterday at getting all stuff ready, packed up the minivan. I ordered him a hamper online that, going to get shipped to the house. Those things, the mesh, the ubiquitous mesh laundry hamper. It's like the night before, right? Mom, I don't want a laundry hamper. Boop, 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 boop. In the old days, we had to get in the car. We got to go to the mall, or we got to go to the Target or whatever big box store. We got to go get this and this and this and this. I'm like, boop, 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 boop. He's like, great, I'll get a ride with a friend. I'll come pick it up. That's how he and I work. It's like, okay, I need this. Boom, you got it. What else? What's next? Boom, boom, boom. That's how I work. So he went off in the minivan with his older brother, who is not moving into, he's waiting for the application on his apartment to go in so he can move closer to his job. But for the meantime, so he went, and they put stuff in the extra seat in case, instead of me going there, they put a big box, because at UConn, they didn't have the other college he went to last year, so he's transferring. The other school where my oldest son went, they had these nice wheeled bins, because there weren't as many kids. You go to a state university. He's on the 4th freaking floor, no elevator. It's like where I went to school. Well, I went to UConn, but I was a commuter student. I went for my grad degree, my MBA, and I didn't stay on campus. So I said to my husband, when he comes home, he said, how did it go? He's on the couch drinking water. He said, and he shows me this picture. There was a ceiling tile completely like falling out. The light was out. There was a ceiling tile like hanging out. I hope it doesn't hit him on the head while he's sleeping. And I said, that reminds me of my experience at UConn. I said, when I went there, they had bricks falling off the building in 1990, 91. They had literally scaffolding the whole time I was there, and big sheets of plastic. Every now and then a brick would pop off the building and like just miss somebody. So they had to put stuff until they, now it's beautiful. Now they have the innovation building and technology. They even have a workshop where kids can go and build stuff, which is perfect because he's in our garage. He says, just before he gets in the minivan, he's like, Dad, I want to put in a couple more, pieces of wood. He's got his second Adirondack chair that he's making with the skateboards, he put old skateboards as the back of the chair. So he had a couple of supports that he had to just, so he slapped some glue on there with the drill. And he's like, okay, I'm good. I'm get in the car. Like, why is he majoring in environmental science? He should be majoring in design, and architecture, building things. He's he's an artist, he's a musician. He's like, you look in the back of the minivan, there's like 3 guitars, there's like his art supplies, and he's figuring out how he can get into this workshop. So it's like wood shop, and here he is, studying, which won't hurt him. He's a science kid, but he's curious about everything. He was always a good writer. He's a good writer. He's a good artist. He's a musician. He's a feeling. He's got. And I didn't even know my own son's astrological chart. I'm like, okay, he's got an Aries sun, and he's got a Virgo moon. No wonder. Moon in Virgo. That means, like, right now, so I'm talking about humility. And when you think about Virgo, it's a sign of humility. It's a sign of service. He's the younger son, so he's had to, I think in this life, he's going to have a lesson in humility. Because no sooner is he born, right? He's an Aries, he wants to go, right? He's got the older brother going, poof, not so fast, right? The older brother who's got a sun in Virgo. So his sun and my younger son's moon are conjunct. So they, they're connected that way. So it's kind of interesting. You start doing, if you're into astrology at all, do your kids' charts, because then that gives you a little bit of help. It opens your eyes. I'm like, knowing yourself is, of course, the most revealing. But if you do those charts of your loved ones, you don't have to tell them about it. 'Cause my mother used to say, well, you're not really supposed to do other people's charts unless, But now they have all kinds of apps and everything. So I look at it as parenting research. And I do know that he and my youngest son and I had a past lifetime together. I know this. Don't ask me how I know, but I know. And it explains so much. We've always gotten together. I spent so much time. I spent time with him after the older one went to school. The older one, we had a lot of one-on-one time, like reading when he was a baby and toddler, and he needed that. He needed to be first. He needed to be, he had that, and that serves him well. Now that he's kind of going off, the younger one, he needed. I taught his CCD classes. I enrolled him in just about every social, creative group I could think of, little classes, mommy and me things. It wasn't in a smothering way, but, we'd have adventures. And that's kind of how Zazoo Plazz came about. Is I got into a mom's group with a couple of moms who were, Sagittariuses. And they had kids the same age as my son. And they're still friends, a couple of them are still friends. They formed some good friendships. But, you get to know what your child needs as a mom or as a dad. But sometimes you have sort of an instinct, maybe with one child more than the other, or with both. It's not so much doing the same thing for both as I think doing what your one child needs and figuring out what that particular child needs from you and giving them that. That's my little parenting philosophy. Take it or leave it, whatever. But yeah, he's working on his chairs. I'm like, oh, that is so sweet, He's doing his chairs. Like St. Joseph, he was a humble man. Look at that. St. Joseph was a carpenter, right? Taught Jesus how to do it. Jesus worked in the wood shop with his dad. So that kind of brings me, and then I looked up. It said, my kid, he's got his north node opposing his midheaven. So mine is conjunct my midheaven, which means in this life, I want to be, famous. I want to be, no, actually, my north node is not conjunct my midheaven, but it's pretty close. My midheaven is conjunct my Jupiter in the 9th house, and my north node is in the 9th house. So it's all related to publishing and, writing, so I guess I'll be a famous author. So now's the time to go buy Zazoo Plazz, because there'll be more books coming. Anyway, but this kid, in another lifetime, he probably was somebody who, got a lot of notoriety. People helped him become somebody. In this lifetime, he's going to be family-oriented. He's working on his emotions, on his, his private life. So I saw that, and I said, oh, and then these kids born in 2003 had their Saturn opposite Pluto, same as our generation in 65 to say 67. So, and that is significant. So that's what I discovered this week. And then, what was the other? So the song, and I'm not really a big Leonard Skinner fan, and that's kind of the generation before me. But I was looking through my songs, and I saw this one, Simple Kind of Man. Simple Man, I think it's called. Is it Simple Man? By Leonard Skinner. Simple Man is the name of the song. And I said, well, that's perfect, isn't it? Because here we are sending the kid off, he'll learn stuff in college. But, I don't think that's going to be it. I think this kid needs he's going to have practical life experiences that are going to teach him, what he needs to know, one way or the other. So if we send our kids off, some of them, you've got a 19-year-old, you might be able to relate to this. He certainly isn't me when I was 19, or my husband, or anybody else. He is the person he will become. He's the, beginning of his future self. So what we do is we send them off with love and an open heart and make ourselves available, but leave them on their mountain. We have our mountains and they have theirs. They have to climb their own mountains, and we can't climb it for them. But the words of the song are very, very appropriate. Be a simple kind of man, listen, understand, strive to understand. His middle name is Francis. And I think of, the prayer of St. Francis. Let me not seek to be understood, but to understand. Not to be loved, but to love. Right? That's good stuff. Never thought about that. His middle name is Francis. And the St. Francis St. Francis was also a friend of the animals and of nature and a simple man. My husband's uncle was a Franciscan priest. So I think that's what they were about. But this isn't so much of an organizational thing or a religious thing, as it is more of an example, more of a getting back to traditional ways, getting back to simple ways, and serving society in whatever way that you are meant to or moved to serve, using your gifts. Like me, I made a cold chicken salad last night. I actually had the foresight to make the chicken on Friday night after the pizza, because we always get pizza on Friday night. And then, so I chopped it up. I made some pasta, which I didn't get the little curly rotini kind because they didn't have it at the store, my delivery drive. So they gave me penne instead. But then the box broke and went all over the place. Anyway, long story short, I cooked the penne, mixed it up with the chicken, some green and red grapes, and some celery, always celery, and made a little dressing of some cashews, and ranch dressing with a little mayo. I feel like my mom, whenever somebody complimented her on a recipe, she's like, well, let me tell you how I made it. And then she had to sit there and she'd say, and now you do this, and then you put in the mayonnaise, and then you put in the, and then, and by the time she's done, I'm like, And even at the end, when my mom couldn't eat, she would still tell people how to make recipes. It's like vicariously through them making it, she would be nourished. So go figure that. That's a life of service for you. So I'll leave you with that. And what is that? Oh, there's some kind of bug. What is that thing? Ew. Ew. I don't want to fall in there. There's some kind of creepy thing. Oh, it's looking at me. Oh. Okay. Anyway. All right. I guess I'm going to go for a walk. See what's left of my house before the other one takes off in a week or two. It's like the remains of the apocalypse. And then it's Virgo season on top of it, which means that every little thing bothers me. And we're not talking a little dirt here. We're talking major overhaul. So, stay tuned. We're all a work in progress, aren't we? Some of us more than others. So, till next week, hang in there. Try to be of service. Shine your light. Get some rest. Take care of yourself. Make a nice dinner for yourself, and try not to be too hard on yourself or other people. Till next week, Zazoo Plazz signing out. Take care.